Let's create another example, a simple weather app that fetches and displays weather for a given city. This example will use HTML, CSS, JavaScript along with the OpenWeatherMap API. If you have not looked at my previous project about the to-do list, I'd probably say look at that project before you do this, because that one has more details or in detail of each and every HTML tag and codes that we've done. But if you're familiar with that, you can jump straight into this and look at what we do with the weather app, where we enter a particular city and we say get weather, and it fetches the data from weather API, and gives us the data about temperature, uh, how is the weather out there, scattered clouds, humidity, wind speed. So this is what you get from this particular project. So in this example, since we are going to use weather data from OpenWeatherMap, what we're going to do is go to the openweathermap.org website, sign in. If you don't have an account, create an account and sign in to your account. I already have an account and I have created a few APIs already. So I'll probably use one of my API keys. So once you sign in, you'll probably see my services, my APIs. I have an API key already that I've created. So I'm going to use this for this particular project. So make sure that you go ahead and you can just name whatever you want to name your API and generate, and it will create an API for you. It will take a few minutes to a couple of hours maximum for this to become active. It will say active here, but sometimes it takes some time. So you can use that API key. Now I'm going to do is go to the API documentation by clicking on API here. I'm going to open it in a separate page just to show you. And I'm going to use the current weather data API. I can go to the API documentation, and inside this, we are going to look for weather using not lat long but city name. As you saw from the example that we're going to set up, we're going to let the user enter the city name and get their weather. So I'm going to use built-in API request by city name. So this is the URL that I'm going to use. And if you look at the URL, it says API Open Weather Map, and it needs the city name. So let's give a city name to this. I'll say Atlanta, and API key. Let's get it from here. I'm gonna copy this API key that I already have, enter it here, and run it, and you'll see probably get the coordinates, longitude, latitude, weather, base, bunch of different options here. If I do pretty print, it shows all the different attributes. I'll keep it here for now because we might need it in future. I'll keep this URL also here because we will need it. So now just jump into uh, the folder. So if you have not looked at to-do list app video, I would recommend to look at that, so you can get understanding of some of the structures of HTML, JavaScript and CSS, because I'm not going to repeat them over here. So I created a weather app folder. I'm going to start everything from scratch, but just so you know, I've created that folder, and inside this, just like before, I'm going to create three files. First one is where I'm going to house my HTML code. So I'm going to call it index.html. And next one where my styles are going to go, so I'm going to call it styles.css. And the next one is for my JavaScript, which I'm going to call script.js. Now remember the names. In the previous project we did mess up with the names and were not able to use it properly. So in this one I'll try to make sure that I keep it in sync. So for HTML, I'm going to go a little bit faster. We know what all these means because we did this in the previous example. Again, if you don't know, just go ahead and check out the other to-do list project video. HTML, I'm going to use the same stuff that I've used before. Language equal to English. I'm going to create a head tag, and inside this, close the head tag, and inside the head tag I'm going to give, let's say, meta, and inside my meta I'll use that character set. Next I'm going to use meta, which is viewport. So it's again works both on HTML, both on any device. So it's pretty responsible. Let's call it that. Width equal to device width. Make sure it, and initial, the zoomed in level initial scale equal to 1.0. So it looks good on all the devices. So that's that. I'm going to give a title, not time, title to this, and this title will be weather app. And the style sheet, this time let's make sure that we give it right, and that's styles.css, not style.css. And finally, the body tag. So once I have this body tag, the reason it was not aligning properly is because I think it's my mistake. I have, okay, there you go, perfect. Now inside my body tag, as before, I'm going to create a div with class equal to container, close this div, and inside this div I'll add first is the h1 weather app. Next I'm going to create a form where the user can enter the city. I'll call it weather form, make sure it's closed. Next, inside the form I'll have an input similar to what we did before in the previous project. Text, I'm going to use an ID, and for this I'm going to say city input, and placeholder I'll say enter city name. And once I have that, next I'm going to create a button, and this button I will call it get weather, and I'll make this button of the type submit, which means then again what we did previously with the submit button, we made sure that it doesn't submit, but it does whatever we want it to do when the user clicks on that. And then I will create a div element here. Last time we created a unordered list. This time I'm creating a div element where it will display the weather information, because there's a lot of information, not just one row that we're creating. We probably give some more information based on whatever we see here on this form. So all the result will go in there. So that's perfect. I have this. And finally, let's add the JavaScript, which is at script.js. Perfect. So everything looks good. I have my HTML completed. Now let's jump into, let's look at how does it look like. Open in browser, and this is how it looks like, just same as our previous to-do list app. If I put something inside here, nothing will happen. It will submit the form, but again, submit and refresh, nothing has happened here. Now inside my JavaScript, again, I'm going to go and do the same thing. I'm going to say document dot add event listener, and this is when the document is completely loaded, which is the event called as content loaded. And when it does that, load it, what do I want? I want to run this function. Now inside here, let's take all the elements, which is first, let's get the weather form, which is document dot get element by ID, and this ID is weather form, if I'm not wrong. I'm going to do the same thing, copy paste it a couple of times. The next thing that I want is the city input, whatever user has entered, and the third thing that I want is the weather result, on where you want to display the result, and that is weather result and weather input. Let's cross check. Weather form, weather result, and ID is city input, not weather input. It's always good to check so you know that if you're making mistakes. Now next I need to get the API key, so I'm going to create a variable for that. I'll say API key equal to, what's the API key? Nobody can remember, so I'm going to go back and get it from here, or I can get it from here. So I'm going to take that API key, add it here. This API key might not run for you because I will probably delete these API keys after I create this video. So now what I want to do, weather form dot add event listener, whenever the user presses the submit button, what do I want to do? I want to run a function with that particular event, which is the submit button, because I don't want that event to go forward. I want that event to be cancelled. I'll say event dot prevent default. So what this will do is it will not let it submit the form, it will just prevent that default behavior. Next, I'll get the city, which is city input dot value. So the city input, whatever value user has entered, that's what I'm getting here. And then I'll get the weather information. So for that, I'll write a separate function. I'm just going to say get weather and pass the city name to it. And once that is done, I'm going to say city input dot value equal to empty. So it cleans the form. Now let's go ahead and create that function, which is get weather. Now, a lot of times when a particular function is running and it's asking something from a URL, it might take some time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this function asynchronous. Now, in JavaScript, you can make an function asynchronous by saying async. So this will not load up your page, and if you have some other things on the page that user can do, the user can still go ahead and click on those buttons or navigate away. So now let's get that URL. Now I'm going to create a template. So I am going to use the special templating format and copy this entire URL right here. Now wherever we have to enter city, I want that to come from, use the template tool, template theme, and say city is what I want to replace here. And here I want to replace, I can hard code that, but it's always better to keep your variables outside and just use that here. So tomorrow if your API changes, you just change in one place. That's always efficient. You can always specify metrics. There's also an option to specify like units of metrics, or if you want Fahrenheit or if you want Celsius, you can do that, but I'll just keep it default, which it looks like based on here. It says temperatures 305, humidity 55, and if I say and units equal to metric, so in this case, if you see, it looks like in Celsius, much better than 300 and 400 numbers. I think there's metric, and let's see what other option do we have. Metric, standard, and imperial. Let's look at imperial. In this case, it looks like it's in Fahrenheit. Feels like 100, temperature is 91, which pretty much is very hot outside, so that's why I'm sitting inside and doing this. So I'm going to use this, but it's up to you what you want to do. Depending on your country or where you are located, you can use that particular metrics that you want or unit that you want. So that's the first thing. Now I have that. Let's try to connect to that. The way you connect to that is, first I'll create a constant response. Now this response is whatever comes back from that URL. So I'm going to say await and fetch. This is the function that is built in JavaScript. What it will do is it will fetch that and assign the data that it gets to this response. Now we'll get this particular response. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take that data and put it inside this. I will say await response dot JSON. So if you look at it, this is the JSON data that we get, and that's what I am assigning to data here. And then to display the data, I'm not going to directly display it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to call a function and pass this data to it. So I'll do it separately. It's always good to make your code more modular. Now, if there's an error, I'll catch that error using this catch error. Say console.log, and in here I'm going to say error fetching weather data. And what is the error? I will pass that error to it, because every time this try and there's some issue, then it will give me the error here. Next, I'm going to say weather result, that div that I've created. I'm going to say there inner HTML, and for that I will create a p tag and say error fetching weather data /p. I can also say please try again, something like this. I can give it some class, maybe if I want to style it in future. So I'll just give class of, let's call it weather dash data, something like that. We'll clean this up later if there is any problem. Now the only thing that is left after this is this display weather function. So I'm going to say function display weather, and this gets the data. Let's move it a little bit up. So I'm going to put some spacing here. It's on top of the screen. So the whatever data that I'm getting, I need to check if data dot cod equal to 200. So what I'm checking here is, was the data that I got is accurate. So there's a COD over here which tells me that this data is good. There was no issue with the data, and that's what I'll get. If it was not, according to documentation, I can still say same thing, like city was not found. The city was found in this case. If the city is not found, it will not give me 200 over there. So I can say weather result, copy paste the same thing, and instead of error fetching data, I can say city not found, and please try again, same error. But if the city was found, I'm going to say constant weather data, and I'll use this so I can insert stuff inside. I'm going to make it multiple line. You can do that. That's the best part about using these template tags. And I'll say weather data, same class. Why make new ones? And inside that, let's make sure that I close my div tag. And inside that, first I'll give a header tag of h2, and inside that, I'll first parameter that I want to do is data dot. If you looked at our sample, the final output, I want to use data dot name, which is the name of the city. So I'm saying data dot name here, and then comma. I'll say, does it have a country in here? I thought I saw a country somewhere. I will say I think sys has country here. So I'm going to use that. So that I can pass, sorry, by saying data dot sys dot country. Excuse me. Close that h2. Next, I want to get the temperature. So I'm going to say temperature in this particular place is data dot main dot temp. If you see here inside data, there's a main, and that's temperature. That's temperature that is there, and that's what I want to pass here. Now it's in Fahrenheit. I'll say F here slash. If you're doing it Celsius, do it in Celsius over here. So make sure that it's consistent. Temperature, weather. Next is weather. I'm gonna say weather, and it's an array element. So I want to first element, and inside that I want to get the description, which is overcast clouds. So that's what I'm gonna display here. I'm gonna say weather 0 of description. I always like to copy paste these things, so I don't do typo, or if they have a typo, I don't. I make sure that we are consistent. Next thing that I want to give is humidity. Now humidity is right here, so I can say humidity is data dot main dot humidity. What else do we want? Let's look at here, and we have, I like to know the wind speed. I think there is wind speed right here, so I can use that wind, because sometimes it's not that cold, but because of the wind speed it becomes too cold. So wind speed, so like for example here wind speed is 4.21 miles per hour, which means it's pretty low. That's why the temperature is high. If the wind speed is higher, probably it might be a little bit better because we have that breeze. So I have wind speed here. Perfect. So I have this div closed here. I can close this, and next I'll say weather result dot inner HTML equal to weather data. I'll pass this there. So let's see if this works. Let's go back to our browser. Let's run this application. I'll say Atlanta, get weather. There you go, Atlanta, US, temperature, weather, humidity. Let's try a different city. Let's say Washington, DC. Get weather, Washington, DC, much a little cooler. Let's go New York City or Boston. Boston is 83 degree Fahrenheit, humidity is 38, wind speed is 8. Pretty good. Let's look at, now that we are looking at, let's look at Miami, 90. Oh, still cooler than Atlanta. Interesting. Yeah, that's a good thing that I'm inside. Now that we have this app, let's make it look prettier. So let's go to CSS. Inside CSS, I'll use my body tag. I'll try to copy some of the previous one, or maybe just do it again so you can practice this with me. Font family, I'll use Arial and I'll use sans serif. Next, I'll say background color. I'll use the same color that I used before, a little bit grayish, E0F7 7FA. I'm just randomly picking something. I know it's in the range. Displays flex. Justify content was center. Nope. Sometimes I assume it automatically picks up stuff. Align items center. That's perfect. See, sometimes it knows height equal to 100 VH. Vertical height, viewport height. Sorry, which is 100% pretty much. Margin is 0. Let's see if it looks well nicer. So a little bit bluish color because of the weather. And container, I want to use inside for the container again, do a little bit background of white so it stands out in the center. 20 pixel padding. I'll give border radius of 5 pixels is what we gave last time. Use the same thing. I'll give the box shadow. I think you liked the box shadow last time. So I'll give the same box shadow 0 0 10 pixel. You can give more if you want to. And the next thing is RGBA, and it picked up everything automatically, but I want not that much darker, lighter. And then text align, I want all the text to be aligned to the center. Let's see if it looks good. Yep, there you go, much better. Next we have some h1 tags, so let's make sure that h1 tags has a margin of 0 0 and 20 pixel. Next we have form, so for this form I'll have display of flex. We did justify of content in the center. We did margin, let's do margin bottom of 20 pixel. That's what we did, I think. Let's look at it. Okay, much better. And then we have input. Just move it up so you can see it clearly what I'm doing. Input and type equal to text, so it's of the type text. What I want to do is I want to give a padding of 10 pixel. I can give a border of 1 pixel, solid. I think I gave grid plus CCC, and border radius I gave 3 pixel and flex of 1. And next one was, I think, the button inside that form, and for that we gave a padding of 10 pixel. We gave border none because we are going to give it a nicer background color. For this I'll pick 00796 and color of white. For the text cursor I want pointer, and border radius I want 3 pixel, and margin left, so it's a little bit away from that text field, I can give 10 pixel. Let's see how it looks like. Much better. Hover is still there, so let's give that. Button, hover, I want to give a background color of little bit darker than 4D 40. Much better. So we have that done. Next, for the result, let's get some result first, so we see how it looks like. Okay, this is how it looks like. Let's say it was an ID, so that's why I'm using the pound sign here. When it's a class, it's dot. When it's ID, it's the hashtag. So our pound sign, margin top, we give 20 pixel. And next thing that we have is weather data. Inside that, weather dash data, and for that I'll give a background of pound b to d f d b, and for padding of 10 pixel, border radius of 3 pixel, and margin top of 10 pixel. This is the last time I'm actually coding. In the next project onwards, I'll probably make sure that all this is already written and we'll go through it. Let's run it, get weather, and there you go, much nicer. I can just say again, what was the other one that I used? Let's see, Miami weather, and it works perfectly fine. So this is perfect. So this is how you can build a simple weather app where you can fetch data from an existing API. It might be inside your company, inside your organization, or it might be some open APIs that are available. There's a lot of APIs that are available by every single platform, and you can look at more of these in on online or some forums where they talk about these APIs. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments. That's it.